Imagine yourself married for 5 years to the person you love, believing you are in a happy marriage, only to discover that your wife has been in a double relationship for a year with a colleague. What would you? This is the story of Oliver, a betrayed man who decides to take unforgettable revenge by exposing his wife Brenda's infidelity and rebuilding his life in a surprising way. Oliver and Brenda had been married for 5 years, and he believed they were living a happy marriage. He remembered the good times they had together, the laughter, the trips, and the plans for the future. However, Oliver began to notice subtle changes in Brenda's behavior. She started coming home later, always with the excuse that work was demanding more of her. Brenda, who had always been attentive and caring, now seemed distant and absorbed in her own thoughts. When Oliver suggested spending more time together, she made excuses, claiming fatigue or last-minute commitments. Suspicion began to grow inside Oliver, who loved Brenda deeply but couldn't ignore the signs that something was wrong. Curious and distrustful, he decided to investigate on his own, trying to understand what was really happening with his wife. One night, while Brenda was sleeping deeply, Oliver took her phone with trembling hands. He knew invading her privacy was wrong, but he felt he needed to discover the truth. Unlocking the phone, he found a series of messages from an unknown number. The conversation was intimate and revealing, full of promises and secret meetings. Brenda had been in a relationship with a colleague named Daniel for a year. Oliver read each message, his heart breaking more with every word. The messages revealed details of the meetings, exchanged affections, and even future plans. Feeling betrayed and furious, Oliver decided he wouldn't let this go easily. Instead of confronting her immediately, he chose to wait and plan a revenge that Brenda would never forget. That night, while Brenda slept peacefully, Oliver stayed awake, his heart burning with the pain of betrayal and the desire for justice. Oliver began to meticulously plan his revenge. He knew he needed more evidence to expose Brenda irrefutably. He hired a renowned private detective specialized in infidelity cases. The detective, an experienced and discreet man, started following Brenda daily. In a few days, he brought a mountain of evidence, compromising photos and videos of Brenda and Daniel together in restaurants, motels, and even on romantic walks in the park. With all the evidence in hand, Oliver started to craft a detailed plan to expose Brenda's betrayal in a public and devastating way. He spent sleepless nights organizing every step of the revelation. It wasn't just about the betrayal, but about showing everyone who Brenda really was. He planned a special event, something no one would forget. Oliver's revenge would be as public as the trust Brenda had betrayed, and he would ensure that the humiliation was proportional to the pain she caused. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Oliver organized a surprise party for Brenda. He invited friends, family, and co-workers, including Daniel. The party was impeccably decorated with flowers, lights, and a celebratory atmosphere. Brenda, suspecting nothing, was radiant with the surprise. During the party, Oliver gave an emotional speech about love, trust, and the importance of valuing marriage. He held Brenda's hand while speaking, looking directly into her eyes, creating a moment that seemed genuinely touching to all the guests. However, at the end of his speech, Oliver signaled to a prepared sound technician. The lights dimmed and a huge screen lit up. The first images appeared, showing Brenda and Daniel at a romantic dinner. The room fell into absolute silence, with all eyes fixed on the screen. The following video showed meetings in private places, passionate kisses, and intimate conversations. Brenda turned pale, her eyes wide with horror. Daniel tried to slip out discreetly, but Oliver was ready and stopped him, revealing his identity to everyone. The public humiliation was immense. Brenda tried to explain, but her voice barely came out. Oliver, staying calm, finished his speech by saying he was filing for divorce and that Brenda could stay with Daniel if he still wanted her after the public exposure. The silence turned into shocked murmurs as Oliver left the room, leaving Brenda to face the consequences of her actions. Brenda was in shock, tears streaming down her face as she tried to process what had just happened. Daniel, now exposed and ashamed, tried to apologize, but Brenda was too shaken to respond. The guests started whispering among themselves, exchanging uncomfortable and critical glances. Brenda attempted to speak, to explain, but her words were lost. Oliver, maintaining his composure, approached Brenda and said firmly, "You had your chance, Brenda. I loved you with all my heart, but you chose to betray our trust." With those words, he handed her the divorce papers, signed and ready to be finalized. Brenda, still in a state of shock, couldn't respond. Oliver then turned to the guests and, with a sad smile, apologized for the disruption before leaving the party, leaving Brenda and Daniel to face the public shame. The news of Brenda's betrayal and Oliver's revenge spread quickly on social media, with videos and photos of the party circulating among friends and acquaintances. Brenda and Daniel were left to deal with the consequences of their actions, while Oliver moved on, determined to rebuild his life. After the party, the news of Brenda's betrayal and Oliver's revenge spread rapidly among friends, family, and co-workers. Brenda's reputation was almost instantly ruined. She faced disapproving looks and whispers everywhere she went. The pressure at work became unbearable, and within a few weeks, Brenda was fired under the pretext of maintaining the company's integrity. Unemployed and socially isolated, Brenda spiraled into regret and despair. Daniel, in turn, faced the anger of his co-workers. The company decided to transfer him to a branch in another city, far from everyone who knew the story. The transfer, although presented as a new opportunity, was actually a way to minimize the scandal. Brenda tried to keep in touch with Daniel, but he distanced himself, no longer wanting to be associated with her. Alone and without prospects, Brenda was forced to deeply reflect on her choices and the devastating consequences they brought to her life. Oliver, though still hurt by the betrayal, began to rebuild himself in an inspiring way. He moved to a new apartment in an area of the city he had always wanted to explore, free from constant reminders of Brenda. He started going to a gym, adopting an exercise routine that not only improved his physical condition, but also helped release stress and emotional pain. At work, Oliver dived into challenging projects and was rewarded with a promotion. He also enrolled in evening cooking classes, a passion he had neglected during his marriage. Over time, Oliver made new friends who supported him through the divorce process, and he rediscovered hobbies he had put aside, like painting and rock climbing. The pain of betrayal gradually faded, replaced by a sense of renewal and purpose. In one of these cooking classes, he met Rachel, a vibrant and kind woman who was also looking for new beginnings. They started dating and quickly realized they had a deep connection based on mutual respect and common interests. Rachel restored Oliver's trust and love, helping him completely overcome his past with Brenda. Brenda, now unemployed and socially isolated, faced profound loneliness. She tried to rekindle things with Daniel, but he made it clear he no longer wanted to be involved with her, blaming her for the collapse of his professional life. Desperate, Brenda sought out Oliver to ask for forgiveness and try to regain his trust. On a rainy afternoon, she appeared unexpectedly at Oliver's new apartment door. She was wet, with eyes red from crying. "Oliver, please hear me out. I know I made terrible mistakes. I'm so sorry for everything. Can we talk?" Brenda pleaded, her voice breaking with emotion. Oliver looked at her with a mix of sadness and determination. "Brenda, There's nothing left to say. You destroyed the trust we had. I'm moving on with my life, and you need to do the same." Oliver's words were firm, but he couldn't help feeling a twinge of pity for Brendan. Nonetheless, he knew going back was not an option. For Oliver, there was no longer any room for Brenda in his life. He closed the door gently, but with a sense of finality. Over time, Oliver and Rachel grew closer. Rachel was a constant and positive presence in Oliver's life, always ready to listen and share her own challenges and triumphs. For the first time in a long while, Oliver felt he had found someone who truly understood him. They spent weekends together, exploring new restaurants, hiking outdoors, and planning trips they had always dreamed of. On a starry night during a trip to Tuscany, Oliver prepared a romantic dinner in a vineyard vine. Under the starry sky, he looked into Rachel's eyes and said, "Rachel, you brought back the joy and trust I thought I had lost forever. I can't imagine my life without you. Will you marry me?" Rachel, with tears of happiness in her eyes, responded with a resounding yes. They began to plan a life together, discussing their dreams and aspirations, always with a sense of love and partnership. Meanwhile, Brenda, still dealing with the consequences of her actions, realized she had lost something valuable and irreplaceable. For Oliver, however, life was finally following a path of happiness and renewal. A year after the wedding, Oliver and Rachel welcomed their first child, a boy named Ethan. Ethan's arrival brought even more joy and completeness to Oliver's life. He remembered the difficult moments he had endured and felt grateful for having found a new beginning with Rachel. The nights were filled with laughter and tender moments as they cared for little Ethan. Oliver loved holding his son in his arms and telling stories about how he met Rachel, promising to teach him values of honesty and true love. One sunny afternoon, while playing in the park, Oliver realized that he had finally found the happiness he had always desired. Brenda, on the other hand, continued to face the consequences of her choices. She watched from a distance, reflecting on what could have been. Brenda struggled to rebuild her life, but the shadow of her past mistakes still lingered. Determined to reconstruct her life, Brenda started attending therapy regularly, committed to understanding the reasons behind her destructive decisions. She also began attending support groups for people dealing with regret and seeking forgiveness. In search of a new purpose, Brenda started volunteering at a shelter for women victims of domestic violence. There, she found some solace in helping other women find strength and hope in difficult situations. Brenda began to feel a sense of redemption seeing how her support made a difference in those women's lives. She enrolled in professional qualification courses and started applying for new jobs, determined to rebuild her career from scratch. Although she still dealt with loneliness and the pain of regret, Brenda was determined to become a better person and not repeat the mistakes of the past. Oliver and Rachel grew closer and closer, and he finally felt ready to take a new step in his life. After a year of dating, he proposed to Rachel during a romantic trip to Tuscany. Rachel said yes, and they began planning a life together, far from the shadows of the past. Rachel brought back trust and love into Oliver's life, helping him completely overcome Brenda's betrayal. They started planning the wedding with enthusiasm, choosing every detail with care and love. The ceremony was small and intimate, surrounded only by close friends and family. During the celebration, Oliver gave an emotional speech about the importance of trust, love, and loyalty. He spoke about the lessons he learned and how Rachel helped him rediscover happiness. Rachel, in turn, expressed her gratitude for having found such a resilient and loving man as Oliver. Together, they promised to build a life based on honesty and mutual support. The party was filled with laughter, music, and dancing, a true rebirth for Oliver, who finally felt that he had left the past behind and was ready for a bright future alongside Rachel. In a twist of fate, Daniel was fired from his new job, due to a company restructuring. With no career prospects and without Brenda by his side, he found himself in a difficult position, unemployed and isolated. Daniel reflected on his choices and the devastating consequences they brought. Feeling lost, he tried to contact Brenda, hoping to find some solace in the person with whom he had shared a year of his life. However, Brenda, now focused on her recovery and volunteer work, wanted nothing more to do with him. She had found a new purpose and knew that maintaining contact with Daniel would only hinder her progress. Determined to move forward, Brenda ignored Daniel's attempts to reach out, concentrating on her own path of redemption. Daniel, in turn, was forced to face the repercussions of his actions alone, realizing that he had not only destroyed Oliver and Brenda's marriage, but also his own life. Meanwhile, Oliver and Rachel continued to build their life together, far from the chaos and pain that Brenda and Daniel had brought. Oliver, now a stronger and more resilient man, was determined not to let the past interfere with his present and future happiness. On Oliver and Rachel's wedding day, the ceremony was small and intimate, surrounded only by close friends and family. The chosen location was a charming vineyard in Tuscany, with rolling green hills and a stunning sunset view. Rachel walked down the aisle in an elegant white dress, and Oliver waited for her, smiling with a mix of happiness and emotion. During the ceremony, Oliver gave an emotional speech about the importance of trust, love, and loyalty, without directly mentioning the past, but making it clear that he had found a new and improved vision of happiness with Rachel. Rachel, you brought light into my life when I needed it most. With you, I have learned to believe again in true love and genuine partnership. I promise to love and support you through all moments, whether they are good or challenging. Rachel, tears of joy in her eyes, responded, Oliver, you are the embodiment of strength and kindness. I am so grateful to have found you. I promise to stand by your side, loving and respecting you today and always. After exchanging vows, the guests enthusiastically applauded, moved by the evident love between the two. The following celebration was joyful and relaxed, filled with laughter, dancing, and toasts. Oliver felt complete, surrounded by people he loved and appreciated, and knew he was on the right path to a bright future. While dancing with Rachel under the stars, he looked around and realized that he had finally found the peace and happiness he had always desired, leaving behind the shadows of his past. A year after the wedding, Oliver and Rachel welcomed their first child, a boy named Ethan. Ethan's arrival brought even more joy and completeness to Oliver's life. He remembered the difficult moments he had endured and felt grateful for having found a new beginning with Rachel. The nights were filled with laughter and tender moments as they cared for little Ethan. Oliver loved holding his son in his arms and telling stories about how he met Rachel, with the promise of teaching him values of honesty and true love. One sunny afternoon, while playing in the park, Oliver realized that he had finally found the happiness he had always desired. Rachel, sitting on the grass with Ethan in her lap, looked at Oliver and smiled. "We did it, didn't we?" she said softly. Oliver approached, hugging both of them warmly. "Yes, we did. We have had everything I've always dreamed of, a loving family and a future full of possibilities." Meanwhile, Brenda continued to face the consequences of her choices. She watched from a distance, reflecting on what could have been, but also finding some solace in her volunteer work and her journey of self-discovery. Brenda struggled to rebuild her life, but the shadow of her past mistakes still lingered. For Oliver, however, those dark chapters were behind him. He focused on the bright future he was building with Rachel and Ethan. Each day brought new joys and challenges, but with Rachel's support, he felt he could face anything. Oliver had finally found the peace and happiness he had always sought, surrounded by love and hope. As time went on, Oliver and Rachel decided they wanted to expand their family. Ethan, now 2 years old, was a bundle of energy and curiosity, bringing laughter and joy to their home. Rachel discovered she was pregnant again, and when she shared the news with Oliver, he embraced her with tears of happiness in his eyes. "We are building a wonderful family," he said, feeling more grateful than ever for having found a new beginning alongside Rachel. Meanwhile, Brenda continued to struggle to rebuild her life. Her volunteer work at the shelter for women victims of domestic violence turned into a meaningful career. She began giving lectures on the destructive effects of betrayal and the importance of rebuilding self-trust. Through these experiences, Brenda started to find a new form of redemption and purpose, helping others avoid the mistakes she had made. Oliver and Rachel, now with 2 children, enjoyed a life full of love and adventures. They loved traveling with Ethan and the new baby, exploring new places and creating unforgettable memories. Each trip was an opportunity to strengthen their family bonds and teach their children important values. On one of these trips, during a spectacular sunset, Oliver reflected on his journey from betrayal to building a new life filled with love and happiness. For Oliver, the past had become a valuable lesson, something that taught him to appreciate even more what he had now. He knew that without the challenges and pains of the past, he might never have found the strength to seek a better life. Now, he was determined to live each day to the fullest, surrounded by the people he loved, and building a future filled with hope and joy. And you, what would you do in Oliver's place? Comment below on how you would handle such intense betrayal and revenge. Don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel to follow more impactful stories like this one. Your opinion is very important to us. See you in the next story.